So the anterior surface of the shaft of the radius in its upper 2/3 or upper 3/4 gives origin to flexor pollicis longus, whereas in its lower 1/4 or lower 1/3 it receives the insertion of pronator quadratus. Pronator quadratus is inserted in its lower 1/3, which the superficial fibers of the pronator quadratus are inserted here, and the deep fibers are inserted into this triangular area formed by the splitting of the interosseous border. Okay, this anterior surface presents a small opening here, which is the nutrient foramen along in its anterior part. It is not clear here. Probably this may be the nutrient foramen. So this nutrient foramen, it is directed upwards, suggesting that the lower end of the bone is the growing end, and the nutrient artery is derived from the branch of anterior interosseous artery. Nutrient artery is from the branch of anterior interosseous artery. Okay, this is all about the anterior surface. Now coming to the posterior surface. Posterior surface extends between the medial border and posterior border. So this surface is the posterior surface. So between the medial border and posterior border, this surface is the posterior surface. This surface gives origin to abductor pollicis longus in its upper part. This is abductor pollicis longus is taking origin in its upper part, and extensor pollicis brevis in its lower part. So the posterior surface, abductor pollicis longus in its upper part and extensor pollicis brevis in its lower part. Now coming to the lateral surface. Lateral surface is between the anterior border and posterior border. So this lateral surface, which is somewhat curved, this is the lateral surface. This lateral surface in its upper part close to the neck, it receives the insertion of the supinator. That means somewhere here, this lateral surface, this receives the insertion of supinator muscle, which extends slightly along to the anterior aspect of the neck also. So this is supinator muscle, and in its middle 1/3, it receives the insertion of pronator teres. In its upper part, supinator muscle. In its middle part, pronator teres. And in the lower part, which is continuous with the lateral surface, which is continuous with the styloid process, receives the insertion of brachioradialis. So to remember the lateral surface from above downwards, supinator, pronator teres and brachioradialis, SPB. In the upper part supinator, in the middle part pronator teres, and in the lower part brachioradialis muscle. So this is all about the shaft of the radius. Now coming to the distal end of the radius, this is the distal end of the radius, which is having anterior surface, posterior surface, medial surface, lateral surface and inferior surface. This one is the inferior surface. So the anterior surface of the lower end receives the insertion of the pronator quadratus, and it is separated from the inferior surface by a sharp crest-like border, which receives the insertion of the palmar carpal ligament. The palmar carpal ligament is attached to this. Posterior surface, this is very important. Posterior surface, I just draw only the posterior surface of the lower end of the right-sided radius. So this is the posterior surface of the lower end of the right-sided radius, this being the styloid process. It contains a prominent tubercle. Already I have said this is a Lister's tubercle or dorsal tubercle. Lister's tubercle or dorsal tubercle. So this posterior surface contains this prominent tubercle along with faint grooves, like here you can see a faint ridge, and here also there is a faint ridge, thereby dividing it into numerous grooves: lateral groove, lateral most, second, third, fourth. These are 4 grooves and this is a prominent tubercle, Lister's tubercle, and faint ridges. Now from the lateralmost aspect, this one which is coinciding with the lateral aspect of the styloid process, the muscles related are these two muscles, that is abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis. This is abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. In the second groove present between the dorsal tubercle and this faint ridge, two muscles passes, that is extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. Extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. These are present in the second groove. And this is a prominent Lister's tubercle. Just medial to this, the extensor pollicis longus goes like this. Extensor pollicis longus. In fact, this extensor pollicis longus uses this Lister's tubercle as a pulley to turn from medial end to the lateral side. So this tubercle forms an important support for this muscle to turn laterally towards the thumb. Then we have in the fourth groove here extensor digitorum muscle. This is extensor digitorum muscle. Under cover of it, extensor indicis muscle. This is extensor indicis muscle, and it is also related to the posterior interosseous nerve. The posterior interosseous nerve also passes through this groove. And furthermore medially, the muscles passing are extensor carpi ulnaris and extensor digiti minimi. So this is all about the posterior surface of the lower end, where all the structures are enclosed by the extensor retinaculum, and that extensor retinaculum prevents these structures in bowing out, and these structures are present in place because they are passing through that respective grooves. Okay. Now coming to the medial surface I have said it consists of a lower ulnar notch of radius. This is the ulnar notch of radius which articulates with the ulna, lower end of the head of the ulna like this to form inferior radio-ulnar joint. It forms the inferior radio-ulnar joint. Okay. And along the junction between the medial surface and the inferior surface, this part receives the attachment of the triangular base of the articular disc of inferior radio-ulnar joint. The triangular base of the articular disc of the inferior radio-ulnar joint is attached to the junction between the medial surface and inferior surface. Now coming to the lateral end is an expanded, it forms the styloid process. It is a hook-like projection along the lateral part. This styloid process, to the tip of the styloid process, it receives the attachment of the lateral carpal ligament or the radial collateral ligament, and here the base of the styloid process receives the insertion of the brachioradialis, which already I have said. So brachioradialis and radial carpal ligament or lateral carpal ligament to the tip. Now leftover part is the inferior surface. This inferior surface, if you see, this inferior surface, it consists of a triangular surface laterally and quadrangular surface medially. So this triangular surface laterally is articulating with scaphoid bone, and this one, the medial quadrangular surface, is articulating with the lunate bone, thereby forming the wrist joint or radiocarpal joint. The radiocarpal joint or wrist joint is formed by the lower end of the radius, scaphoid and lunate. Ulna is not taking part in the wrist joint. Okay, so this is about the inferior surface. Okay, this finishes the bone. Now coming to the ossification part of it, it has one primary center to the shaft, appears at 7th to 8th week of intrauterine life, and two secondary centers, one for the lower end, which appears at 1st year and fuses with the shaft at 17th or 18th year, and for the upper end The secondary center appears at 4th year and fuses with the shaft at around 14th to 15th year. So it is following the law of ossification, which states that the secondary centers of ossification which appears first should fuse last. Here it is appearing first. This lower end it is appearing first and it is fusing at the 17th or 18th year, which is later than that of the upper end, which is fusing only at the 14th or 15th year. Now coming to the clinical aspect of it, I'll just clinical aspect of radius, the fractures like SX, Lopresti fracture, which means there is a fracture of the radial head, there is a fracture of the radial head, there is a disruption of the interosseous membrane, and there is a dislocation of the inferior radioulnar joint. So, SX Lopresti fracture means radial head fracture, interosseous membrane is disrupted, and dislocation of inferior radioulnar joint. Okay, but the important thing in relation to the fractures at the lower end of the radius is Colles fracture. This is very common finding, Colles fracture of radius. That means there is a fracture at the distal end of the radius. Colles fracture is nothing but the fracture at the distal end of the radius, which is happening because of the fall of the outstretched hand. And with the fall of the outstretched hand, there may be a fracture along the distal end of the radius, so that when there is a complete fracture, this distal end of the distal the distal fragment of the fracture moves backwards and upwards like this. So under X-ray, it appears like this. This is proximal end. This is distal end like this. So this is called as, this deformity is called as dining fork or dinner fork deformity. Is it clear? So the Colles fracture is characterized by this dining fork deformity, where the distal fractured segment is displaced backwards and upwards, and under X-ray it appears like this. The reversal of this, if there is a fall like this, there is a fracture at this segment, and that if there is a fall like this, not on the reversal, on the dorsum of the hand, the fracture segment will be like this, and the reversal of the dining fork or Colles fracture deformity is called as the Smith fracture. Clear? So when there is a fall on the dorsum of the hand, the distal fractured segment is displaced forwards and upwards. Like this, it is displaced forwards and upwards. This is a view from the lateral aspect after the fracture. Okay. So not only this, we have Barton's fracture, which is an intra-articular fracture of the lower end of the radius, characterized by the dislocation of the inferior radioulnar joint. Even we can have Hutchinson's fracture, wherein there is a fracture of the styloid process due to the compression by the scaphoid bone. The scaphoid bone compresses against the styloid process, resulting in the fracture of the styloid process. That we call it as Hutchinson's fracture. And we can even have pulled elbow in case of powerful sudden jerk given to children. Sometimes the superior radioulnar joint may be subluxated or partially dislocated, and that condition is called as a pulled elbow. But for the clinical things, in case of radius, the important being the Colles fracture. This you need to know. This is all about radius in brief. Hope you understood. Thank you.